what we know is changing who we are. Changing our jobs, our cultures, our lives, and even our future. Knowledge is power, power to create prosperity for all. Knowledge became a global economic driver with the IT boom in the 80s and the 90s, opening doors of opportunity for many new entrants. One of those new entrants was India, whose sudden rise as a knowledge power took the world by surprise, prompting people across the world to try and crack the secret of India's rise. The answer lay buried in the past. Knowledge and its pursuit as a path for discovery and innovation was a time-honored tradition in the Indian society for centuries. Whether it was the invention of something as fundamental as inventing a zero or creating path-breaking discoveries in the arena of astronomy, medicine or physics, India had many firsts to its credit. Mohenjo-daro and Harappa, belonging to 3000 BC, are some of the earliest and the finest examples of town planning in the world. Founded in the 5th century AD, Nalanda was one of the first of its kind residential university. Over 10,000 students and 1,500 teachers covered every field of learning.
This is the only culture anywhere in the world which say the greatest scriptures are lower knowledge, whereas the higher knowledge is adrishyam, agrahyam, agotram, avarnam. That is something that has not been seen, something that has not been understood, something that has not been grasped, something that is yet to be born, that is new knowledge.
But, like with other civilizations, the pursuit of knowledge in India also had its ups and downs. Diverse political and historical circumstances slowed the growth of knowledge in India. This ever-widening knowledge gap became a cause for serious concern for the handful of Indian scientists and social reformers who were exposed to the changing international scenario. One such man was J.N. Tata, a prominent businessman of his time. Tata recognized the desperate need for India to make its foray into the new world of science and technology. He was well aware of the status of the existing universities and colleges. Most of them were merely examining bodies, which is why Tata wanted to set up a world-class institution that would lay the foundation for serious scientific research and training in India. Tata earmarked 1/3 of his wealth for the setting up of this institution. But despite all his benevolent gestures, there weren't many takers for his idea. His principal critic was the then Viceroy of India, Lord Curzon. In Curzon's opinion, India had no need for any such institutions. But Tata wasn't a man to take no for an answer. Till his dying day, he passionately pursued his dream, writing letter after letter to anyone and everyone whose support he could enlist for his scheme. And finally, 7 years after his death in 1911, the Indian Institute of Science came into being. A magnificent campus and building were developed to house the institution and its many departments. Leading scientists from across the world were brought in to provide education in different areas of science. In no time, the institute became the hub for most of the top Indian scientists. Recognition came early. In 1930, Sir C.V. Raman, a faculty member at the Indian Institute of Science, won the Nobel Prize for his discovery of the inelastic scattering of photons, which was thereafter known as the Raman effect. However, the 30s and the 40s were decades where the institute primarily concentrated on meeting the wartime research needs of the colonial powers. It was only after the independence of India in 1947 that the real burden of nation building fell upon the Indian Institute of Science.
Long years ago, we made a tryst with destiny. Now, time comes when we shall redeem our pledge.
New institutions and people to man them were needed. And as it had to be, the Indian Institute of Science became the main source for the highly trained and skilled manpower that the new nation needed.
We wanted to do something on our own. We were only depending upon the outsiders. We wanted to build ourselves. That was the main thing.
The history of science and technology in India is intimately related to the history of the Indian Institute of Science.
From India's nuclear energy initiative to the space program, almost all scientific endeavours in the country were kick-started with the help of the Indian Institute of Science. Besides developing other organizations, the Indian Institute of Science also continued its pioneering role as one of the best training and research facilities in India.
We have amazing people, amazing students. If I see the students that we get in IISC, I'm always amazed by the caliber of these students.
Along with training, the institute also became the nerve center for the growth in key technology areas like biotechnology, space research, nanoscience and other important defense applications, all of which played a prominent role in development of science and technology in India.
It's extremely well recognized, and we have every month leading institution from the West knocking at the door here, hoping to sign MOUs with the IISCs.
Of the numerous institutions supported by the Indian Institute of Science, the Indian Institute of Technology, IIT, was one of the most successful examples. Its first director, Sir J.C. Ghosh, was a former faculty of the Indian Institute of Science. The idea of IITs was the brainchild of Sir Ardeshir Dalal, member of the Viceroy's Executive Council. For him, India's future development depended not so much on capital as on technology. He proposed the setting up of higher technical institutions that would train highly skilled manpower within the country itself. The new government of independent India set up an education committee to plan the proposal's implementation. The 22-member committee in its interim draft recommended the establishment of higher technical institutions in the country on the lines of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. And so the IITs were born. The first one came up in the eastern state of West Bengal.
Here we started implementing the dream of Indian nation, and that is, as was put by our Prime Minister Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, that this represents the urge of India in future.
The real credit for the solid foundations of the IITs goes to the first Prime Minister of India, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. He passed a legislation that recognized the IITs as institutions of national importance. This unique position galvanized the young IIT faculty into putting personal comfort and resource limitations aside and struggle for building a new India.
So we used to be told the story, well, most of the Nobel laureates which have come up in the world, they didn't have any particular laboratory. How come? How come Madame Curie did this? No equipment. And in India, Sir C.V. Raman, Jagdish Chandra Bose, how could they do it without laboratory? Got Nobel Prize.
As the experiment began to prove successful, other IITs across the country were set up in Chennai, Mumbai, Kanpur, Delhi, Roorkee and even Guwahati. Quality of faculty and curriculum that was updated routinely to keep abreast with international changes was an important feature. This wonderful mix of talent and knowledge kept the students and the faculty pushing their own limits of excellence. The growing reputation of these institutions finally gave birth to one of the most ferocious academic competitions. Of about 300,000 applicants, only 3,500 were chosen. This made the competition the toughest in the world.
Studied for about 16 hours a day and slept about 6 hours a day.
When I got into IIT, I knew that I have beaten 2 lakh guys to get in here.
Getting in guaranteed the best jobs and admissions into the top universities for higher studies anywhere else in the world. Throughout its 50 years of existence, IITs kept providing the nation with its much-needed technical manpower. Majority of India's infrastructure projects and other industries received technical support from the IITs. Almost 90% of India's subsequent trained teaching faculty for other engineering institutions also received their training at the IITs. But it was really in the 90s that the IITs truly realized the vision of its founders.
There was this professor at Berkeley, Annalise Saxenian, who did a survey in which she quoted that of every fifth funded startup in Silicon Valley at that period had an IIT as a founder. And I think, to me, that's where IIT as a name became known in the Valley and then through the US.
From McKinsey Worldwide, Citibank, USA, Vodafone to Sun Microsystems, some of the biggest multinational companies were being headed by IITians.
5 industries, most importantly National Semiconductor Corporation, provided us free fabrication of the latest technologies and put us in the bracket of the 12 top universities in the world, including MIT, Stanford and others. And over these 5 years, our students and faculty have actually designed world-class chips, from baseband processors to the highest end encryption chips to various other types of technologies.
The US Congress passed a landmark resolution honoring the contribution of the IITs in the field of science and technology. With the completion of a successful 50 years, IITs are now looking at an even more exciting and a fulfilling future.
IIT has certainly taken on a grand vision. Even as an incredibly world-class institution, it keeps challenging itself to renew itself, to move to the forefront. And it's hard to think of anything like IIT anywhere in the world. It is a very unique institution.
With the foundation of the IITs, the work towards building national infrastructure had begun. But another critical area needed attention, and that was public health care.
Rajkumari Amrit Kaur was the Minister of Health in the 50s, and she had a dream that we should not have to depend on the outside world to train our postgraduates. And she conceived of setting up the All India Institute of Medical Sciences.
And so the All India Institute of Medical Sciences was born in the early 1950s. The challenge, however, was to find the right kind of manpower. Indian doctors who were working or studying abroad readily gave up promising careers and promptly made their way back to serve the country.
I didn't really go to medical school to come and work in America. I didn't really go to medical school to make oodles and noodles of money. I went to medical school, like everybody else of my generation, to serve the sick population.
The background of this was just one feeling, that a country of our size, with all its resources, is governed by somebody else from outside. Therefore, there must be something deficient in us. And there was this feeling that that deficiency is probably lack of knowledge. And therefore, by upgrading knowledge and skills, we may be able to bring respect to the country in the community of nations.
From the beginning itself, the Institute took on to the challenges head-on. Teaching, research and patient care were carried on simultaneously by the limited faculty. Expectations were high and challenges were enormous. Blindness claimed hundreds and thousands of victims every year, simply due to the lack of basic information and health care. To counter this challenge, a specialized eye care center was created at AIIMS. A nationwide anti-blindness campaign was launched providing basic and advanced eye care facilities.
The blindness prevalence was around 1.39 at that time, which rose to 1.49 at around 80s. But with the effort of government and the planning from our center, the entire blindness programs are very successful.
Over the years, AIIMS introduced many new areas of medical science in India. The Cardiothoracic Center and the Stem Cell Research Facility were the first of its kind in India. Quality of medical care at AIIMS became the best in the country. people with some of the most complicated medical problems from across South Asia began to come and seek treatment. On an average, the faculty began to cater to about 1.5 million outpatients and 80,000 inpatients every year. This huge volume of clinical practice gave the AIIMS faculty and students an unparalleled edge.
I'm from the University of Massachusetts Medical School in Worcester, Massachusetts, and I had a professor who was an endocrinologist there, and he was a graduate of AIIMS for medical school. When we would go through each patient, I found it really amazing that he, although he was an endocrinologist, he knew something about every field. When we were going through neurology, he knew everything about it. Gastroenterology, he knew everything about it, as if he were an expert in the field.
Diarrheal disease control, AIIMS played a pioneering role. It developed 2 vaccines, one for rotavirus, which is a major cause of dehydration in children and deaths in children. It kills over 100,000 children in India. And the other for typhoid fever, a conjugated vaccine that can also be given as early as the first year of life. India is one of the foremost research centers in hepatitis E area. In recent years, AIIMS has pioneered in stem cell research, in the translational aspects of it. We have done tremendously well in control of iodine deficiency in India, and the credit for this goes to the All India Institute. So there's several of these examples where you can have quantitative evidence of impact.
And what had started as a tiny amalgamation of a few bright medical professionals with only the basic departments has grown into a world-class institution with dozens of super specialty departments like the neurosurgery, organ banking, and many others. The period when these institutions were built was a period of tremendous national fervour. Modernizing all aspects of knowledge was the priority. One such key area was modernization of the processes that ran the Indian systems of governance, business, and economy. New economic and business ideas that were revolutionizing the world had left India untouched. This reality became an inspiration for one of independent India's most prolific institution builders, Dr. Vikram Sarabhai, an alumnus of the Indian Institute of Science and heir to one of the biggest business fortunes of his times.
Vikram was always an institution builder, and he always felt that progress could come with good institutions in India.
It was not easy to transform this vision into reality. In a country where tradition was at the root of every industry, a school for teaching management was seen with skepticism.
A lot of people thought that what was there to learn about management? They were already very well versed in management, and it had been done often from father to son, and they were running very prosperous mills. But he felt that there's a lot that one could study about management.
Sarabhai used his own position of influence to force this change through.
Sarabhai looked around the world. He said, the Harvard Business School is the only one place where I see where a lot of effort goes on into addressing teaching, research, consulting to problems of management.
Teething troubles abounded, and the main problem was to find the right faculty.
Then the search began. Whom do you get to teach here? And the answer was a big zero. So he said, well, why don't we get younger people who are willing to take risks? They have no experience, fine, but we will send them for training at Harvard, get them trained, give them enough time to prepare teaching material, and then they will start teaching.
After the initial hurdles, the institute slowly began to take shape. The campus shifted from the home of its founder to the magnificent structure built by the famous American architect Louis Kahn. Modelled on the Harvard School of Business, the Indian Institute of Management (IIM) at Ahmedabad introduced Harvard's unique case study method for the study of business management in India.
And the whole concept of case pedagogy, the basic philosophy is that it's very difficult to teach management. You can only provide opportunities for people to learn management.
The case study methodology gave dynamic learning opportunities to the students who could put themselves in lifelike situations rather than just reading business theory. With time, the effect of this unique way of learning began to get popular, and other IIMs were set up at Lucknow, Calcutta, Indore, Bangalore and Kozhikode. Competition to get into the IIMs was fierce, and so only the best made it.
When you have 150,000 students to choose from and people compete fiercely for getting admission to IIMs, of course we get excellent students, no doubt about it. We just push them hard. We are not easily satisfied. We set them targets which are really, really tough.
The spirit of academic rigor gave the IIM students a unique ability to become agents of change in almost any situation, no matter how rigid or archaic it may be.
What is required in this country is change, and this change is being driven at, I would say, rocket pace today. Deep change has to happen within you as an individual, within you as an organization, and within you indeed as a country. And I think the seeds of this were again sown at IIM Ahmedabad.
Kamath himself became a living example of this principle. He had passed out of the institute in 1971 and joined the banking industry, where he played an instrumental role in revolutionizing banking as it was known in India. From just saving accounts and safe deposit facilities, Kamath transformed the Indian banking industry into one of the most dynamic business areas.
In terms of balance sheet size, the IISC group of 1996 was probably $4 or $5 billion in size. IISC group of today is probably $75 billion in size. So again, a rapid ramp up in both people and assets, and also a rapid ramp up in profit.
Another famous alumnus of the IIMs is Indira Nooyi, the current PepsiCo chief who graduated from IIM Calcutta. It was success stories like these that brought great repute to the Indian Institute of Management and provided its alumnus many opportunities to lead in all arenas of business across the world and in India.
The satisfaction was very great in the sense that we started something entirely new, which people said is doomed to fail. That in India, management will always be a prerogative of the few. It can never be taught. It has to be, we have to be born, which we said is not true, and we proved that to be wrong.
Though their numbers were small, the impact was huge. Developing manpower for creating and managing infrastructure for the nation were only the very basic contributions of these institutions. The real achievements were those that impacted the lives of millions of ordinary Indians, like the Green Revolution. Sustained efforts of the Indian scientists and farmers brought about a radical transformation. From a country with food scarcity in 1947, India became one of the world's biggest agricultural producers, with a record grain output of 131 million tons in 1978-79. Increased food grain production coupled with better medical facilities led to a drastic rise in India's life expectancy from 39 years in 1955 to 65 years in 2005. Above ground in the sky too, Indian scientists made their mark. In 2001, India became one of the very few countries in the world to launch its own geosynchronous satellite that served a variety of developmental needs. This technological preparedness ensured the smooth arrival of the IT revolution in India. By the 80s and the 90s, India had the largest telecommunication network in Asia and the 12th largest in the world. The IT industry in India too developed at a rapid pace. From $150 million in 1992, it grew to $8.2 billion in 2001. The impact of these phenomenal changes seeped all the way down to the grassroots level. IT and telecom revolution brought the world closer to the millions of Indians who lived in small villages and towns, opening doors of new opportunities for all. And the future looks even brighter.
The next revolution that is taking place in India is the knowledge revolution, because we grew out of our agrarian background. We dabbled with industry and manufacturing, and are now actually working on the next revolution that is happening here, which is the knowledge revolution.
In the next 15 years, that's 2005 to 2020, the world is going to need some 43 million people of working age to join the workforce. India is going to have 46 million people in that age group during that period. Every other country, including China, is negative. This is going to be our 15 years.